This is a group called Women for Trump. If you haven't heard of them, you could be forgiven. There are a bunch of different groups out there for Trump, right? There's blacks for Trump and Latinos for Trump and lawyers for Trump and whatever. There are a billion of them out there. But what makes this group interesting is that it's a cult that has kind of reformed into Women for Trump. This woman that I'm kind of highlighting with my mouse right here, if you're listening and not watching, she's the second from the right. I know that doesn't help you because you're listening and not watching. Anyway, she's the founder. Her name is Jane Whaley. And as it turns out, it's an extremely violent cult that ran a town in North Carolina for decades. Still does. And is connected to some really powerful televangelists, powerful people. As a matter of fact, Dateline covered these people back when they were known as Word of Faith, the Word of Faith Foundation. WFF is what they called them. I'm sorry, I've been calling it foundation. It's Word of Faith Fellowship, WFF, not foundation. Word of Faith Fellowship. That's the name of the cult. When they were best known for being the Word of Faith Foundation rather than Women for Trump, Dateline, hosted by none other than Bill O'Reilly. Yes, Bill O'Reilly. I'm sorry, Inside Edition, not Dateline. My apologies. Bill O'Reilly was hosting this bad boy. He did an expose on them or whatever. So I wanted to watch a little bit of this clip from Bill O'Reilly and talk about these Women for Trump people because I actually read an entire book about this. I am extremely well informed on this cult now. But before we continue on, look at the vacant look in her eyes. This is called the glassy eye look, and you see this in cult members a lot right here. You can see it in this one too on the right. It's where their eyes are, let's see if I can kind of recreate it. I don't know. My lighting may not be good enough to recreate it, but it's kind of like where their eyes are really wide, like they're excited, and their smile doesn't quite reach their eyes. You know, when you smile, you know, your cheeks kind of puff up a little bit because your smile reaches your eyes and it kind of, makes them smaller a little bit because you're smiling. That's not how it works. The smile is vacant. The lips come out just a little bit and your eyebrows are completely stationary, but your eyes are wide. Kind of like that, you know? That's like the vacant eye look. I'm sorry, that's the glassy eye look that you see in cult members a lot of the time. When you see this look, it's almost guaranteed coming from a cult member. Or let me rephrase. This look right here is disproportionately made by cult members. So some people just smile like this normally, and that's just how they smile. But if you're a cult member, this is almost certainly how you smile. So anyway, let's talk about Women for Trump, a.k.a. the Word of Faith Foundation. Let's watch this Bill O'Reilly Inside Edition piece all the way from 1995. Quick interjection. I won't take long. I just wanted to tell you guys, YouTube's algorithm operates off of a few factors. Watch time, whether or not you subscribe, and whether or not you like something. So if you really want to help my channel, I would appreciate it if you guys watch the video to the end. If you don't watch it to the end, just watch a little bit longer than you would have otherwise. I would appreciate that very much. All right, let's get back to the video. Word of Faith Foundation was infiltrated by a Christian organization called the Trinity Foundation, and they basically did these recordings and stuff, these secret recordings, and infiltrated the Word of Faith Foundation and handed all of the footage to Inside Edition, who then took it and did a whole piece on it. So let's watch.
They say they are following God's will, but are they really abusing children? We'll have a shocking investigation. Inside Edition, right now.
Oh, yes, they were definitely abusing children. They're going to go through their little intro here or whatever. But they were just give you a little context for who these Women for Trump people are, a.k.a. Word of Faith Foundation. They were tying children to chairs and beating them if they didn't do exactly what they were supposed to do. I mean, hitting them, whipping them, smacking them around. And what's even worse, these women... It was all women that were in leadership positions in this cult, or that are in leadership positions in this cult. Weirdly, right? Anyways, these women, Jane Whaley, specifically the founder, they were taking children from their parents and placing them with other members of the cult as a method of kind of like taking hostages almost. Like when they did this, the parent fully bought into what was happening, fully believed everything that was being said, right? But if the parent had doubts, they knew that they would have to leave their child behind in this cult. It was ugly stuff, man. Ugly stuff. Jane Whaley was eventually charged with a bunch of stuff in the 90s, I think. Human trafficking and just a huge list of things. And conveniently enough, her little cult controlled just over half the town, and that means she could elect any representative that she wanted, including, but not limited to, the sheriff, who, by the way, was on her side and covered up the crimes that she committed. We'll get into it. Just keep listening here. By the way, if you don't know Bill O'Reilly, I got to show you the obligatory clip of O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly was the most famous or the most influential Fox News host for a while, just like Tucker Carlson was for a while. And then a bunch of sexual allegations came out about him, and he kind of fell from grace. He got fired and everything else. But leading up to this, when he was on Inside Edition, what we're about to watch, listen to how he reacted to things. This should give you a little insight into who Bill O'Reilly is.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today.
It's behind the scenes. This is not live.
Okay, I don't know. Whatever it is, it's not right on the teleprompter. I don't know what that is. I've never seen that.
No, there it is. We are going to do Sting, yeah.
Okay, but now I can't read it. There's no words on it.
Okay. Honey? Sure.
Dude, what a douchebag. Holy Christ on a cracker, bro. You are in a position of authority. Why are you like this? You don't have to be a jerk to everybody you come across, Bill. There's also a famous video came out of Bill yelling at an airport employee like they have any control over the situation.
This evening, it's Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly on Fox 5. He wants to see a manager.
No, what you're going to do is 3 hours later. No. You're going to find out. You look at him like this. You warm him You're turning me with violence. No, I'm not. You're the one. I dare you. I dare you. Is that what you said?
Like, that airport employee personally is making your plane late just to piss you off. That's it. That's what's happening. That's how he's acting. It's insane.
There's no words on it.
Okay.
Talking about there's no words in the teleprompter.
Honey? Sure.
There's no words there. To play us out. What does that mean? To play us out.
What the do you think it means, Bill? I'm sorry. I'm not that guy. Don't insult people. Not going to do it. Bill, you have been in media for 30-something years at this point, okay? You have worked your way all the way up to the top of Inside Edition. Are you telling me you've never heard the words, to play us out? You don't know what that means? Really? Is that what you're trying to tell me? He's just being a douchebag right now, right? If you think that's horrific, just wait. I'm seeing people say they think that's horrific. Just wait. It gets worse.
Sting is going to do, it's a video, Sting video.
So basically, Sting is doing a video, and the teleprompter says, to play us out, here's Sting with a cut off his new album or whatever. That's what Bill says in the end. That's what was on the teleprompter. That's all he had to say. And he couldn't get it through his thick skull that that's what you're supposed to say. Really? Just read the teleprompter, Bill.
What is...
For credits.
I don't know what that means, to play us out. What does that mean?
30 years in media, he's never heard that term before. Wow.
To end the show?
Yeah.
Oh, he guessed it. He guessed what it meant. Just right off the top of his head. Guy must be intelligent as it comes to be able to guess something just wildly like that with no other context. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, go.
In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it.
Okay. In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. And we will leave you with a... I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live.
Oh, this is where it gets ugly. Ready?
Okay.
We'll do it live. F it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
I love it, dude. You can't even do it not live. You can't even do it recorded. What makes you think you can do it live? Are you kidding me? And he's acting like it's everybody else's fault around him. Bill, this is your fault, okay? You can't seem to grasp the concept of reading a teleprompter. It's that simple. Read the damn teleprompter. It's all you got to do. You're on Inside Edition, okay? 30 years in the media, and you cannot figure out how to not be an asshole to people around you, first and foremost. And second, how to read a teleprompter. Even if you don't understand the words that are being said on it, just read the words.
F***ing thing sucks.
God, you know what I love about that specifically right there? How when he says that, his hair floof kind of goes up and down a little bit. Watch closely.
Write it and we'll do it live. F***ing thing sucks.
I love it. Fantastic. He's such a douchebag.
In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks again for watching. We'll leave you with Sting and a cut off his new album. Take it away.
Wow, you figured it out after all. Turns out it wasn't so hard. It was pretty straightforward. And he didn't even know what the term, what was it, to play us out? He didn't even know what the term play us out meant. And he still figured it out. I am so impressed by Bill O'Reilly right now. Good job, Bill. Oh, the fun does not end there. You think the fun ends there? No, he throws his pen, rips his jacket off. He's so angry. God, I love it, man. I swear to God, it's just fantastic. This is what I live for right here. People being complete douchebags for absolutely no reason. So anyway, behind the scenes, that's what was happening. When Bill O'Reilly was leading up to this Inside Edition piece on Word of Faith Foundation, he was actually being a complete D-bag to the people behind the scenes. It is absolutely horrible. I'm glad that we can look back on it now and like laugh at it, because those poor people who had to deal with that for who knows how long. How long was Bill in the industry? He was in the industry 30, 40 years, right? But you know what? The people who recorded that released it to the public, and it got to this guy right here. And now we get to laugh at it. Us laughing at it is some level of solace to the people who had to suffer under his authority. Anyway, all right, that's completely separate from the story. Let's talk about the Word of Faith Foundation. Listen to this.
We'll have a shocking investigation.
They're raising the rafters in this church, trying to scare the devil out of these kids with a bizarre form of prayer.
Yeah, so what they're doing right here,
But is it
what they're doing is called, oh my God, blasting. That's what it's called. It's called blasting. And they have some biblical justification for it. I looked really hard to find the justification. I cannot. I don't know what justification they give. But the idea is you're supposed to scream in the ear of the person who you believe is possessed by a demon, and that will drive the demon out. So they would tie these kids to the chairs in the nurseries so they couldn't move or fidget or anything at all. A kid, I'm talking 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, all the way up to 15 years old, tie him to a chair. You know, they got their arms and legs like bound to this chair, cannot move. And this is Jane Whaley on screen. You can't really make it out. She's the founder and leader of the church. Extremely powerful person. She was typically the one doing the blasting, or other members of the church. They'd be doing the blasting, just scream at the top of their lungs into their ears. And the Trinity Foundation reporter, he's a pastor himself of a normal church that's not psychotic. He saw it happen to a child, a baby, that he was convinced caused ear damage to the child.
kids with a bizarre form of prayer? But is it spiritual healing or downright child abuse?
It's downright child abuse, and that's not even the worst thing they did either.
I hit so hard one time that I almost flew over the desk.
If you look at the kids' faces, it's really quite fascinating. They're dead.
Yeah, the kids are dead inside. They've kind of disassociated. That happens when you're dealing with something real ugly, something human beings should not have, shouldn't be subjected to. You disassociate, you disconnect. You just shut down. You let what happens, and shut your mind off. So the fact that we're seeing that disconnection, that disassociation from people in this church should tell you just how bad this church was, really.
Over the desk.
If you look at the kids' faces, it's really quite fascinating. They're dead.
Yeah, I'm going to cut out any music, any Inside Edition, anything. I'm probably going to get a copyright strike for this. Back to Bill O'Reilly, the man of the hour. Bill O'Reilly. He's about to tell us, because he's such an... Look at this smile. How can you not trust his smile? Such a nice guy, huh?
Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly, reporting from the Simpson trial. Thank you for watching Inside
Oh, my God. O.J. Simpson was going on at the time. Okay.
Edition today. Over the years, we've investigated a number of religious organizations, not traditional ones
February 28th, 95. That's when this happened.
so much, but fringe religions. Some of them can be dangerous. Today, we'll take a look at a religious sect that may be abusing children.
Maybe. Oh, they definitely were. Absolutely.
Inside Edition has been exposing corrupt televangelists for years, but what we're about to show you goes far beyond religious fraud. With the help of the Dallas-based Trinity Foundation, we've been investigating a religious group based in North Carolina.
Again, the Trinity Foundation's run by a pastor. I think his name is John Evans. I forget. And this group controlled the town. You couldn't drive through this town without the cult being aware of it and following you through town. One of their people, one of their cars would follow you and see what you were doing. It was a town with a population of, 3,000 maybe. And the church had its tendrils in 1,600 of them. And that's how they would get a sheriff elected. Jane Whaley, the leader of the cult, the woman in this picture here, the Women for Trump, the woman right here on the left, she would tell the people who to vote for sheriff. She would endorse them from the pulpit, and they would win. And any crimes that would come up, any child abuse, she knocks somebody over a desk, she punches them so hard that they fall on the floor or anything like that. She ties children to chairs, which all of this stuff happened, really. And there's a complaint. It goes to the sheriff, and the sheriff does nothing about it. Why? Because she got him elected. That's what we're dealing with, a full-blown cult that controlled the town. And now are Women for Trump. Really. If you think that's how connected they are, it gets even worse. It gets even deeper. They were even more connected than that. Just wait. I haven't done the big reveal yet. You'll see.
And what Steve Wilson discovered is very disturbing.
The beautiful foothills of western North Carolina have provided what may have been the perfect hiding place for the dirty little secrets you're about to see.
You have to live with the guilt of the things that you allowed to go on.
So here's the thing about a lot of dictators, a lot of strongmen, a lot of cult leaders, and others like that. Donald Trump, Saddam Hussein, Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un, President Xi, lots of people who have a certain personality type. They want to get people's hands dirty around them, right? Their hands are dirty. Jane Whaley's hands were dirty. She was doing dirty things. She was screaming into a baby's ear at 6 months old. She was tying children to chairs and punching them. She wanted you to get your hands dirty, too. That way, if you went to the cops, you'd have to explain your role in this, too. Same with Saddam Hussein. All the guards that were around him, he got those guards to kill somebody in the Fountain Square directly with their bare hands or with their gun or whatever. He wanted their hands to be dirty, too. Trump operated the same way. So anyways, that's what she's saying here. You're kind of ashamed of your role in all of this. That's by design. That's how cults operate, yes.
You have to live with the guilt of the things that you allowed to go on and the things that you witnessed and never said anything about.
It's not just that. It's a step further.
She's hiding her face not just in shame for what she's done, but also in fear of what others might do to her for telling what's been going on inside their church. The Word of Faith Fellowship here in Spin...
I'm sorry. I've been calling it foundation. Word of Faith Fellowship. WFF, not foundation. Word of Faith Fellowship. There's a really good book that details the entire Trinity Foundation's investigation, what they're talking about on Inside Edition. If you guys want to read it yourself, the book's called... Yeah, Broken Faith. It's called Broken Faith, Inside the Word of Faith Fellowship, one of America's most dangerous cults, by Mitch Weiss and Holbrook Moore. If you want to read it, I gave it a read. It's reasonably long read. It's really good, though. And it gave me it informed me a lot about how this cult operates generally. But yeah, Word of Faith Fellowship, that's what it's called.
Telling what's been going on inside their church. The Word of Faith Fellowship here in Spindale, North Carolina. Outside,
they're blasting, that screaming thing they do.
Seldom see the decidedly different way this secretive sect worships God.
Again, I believe this footage was taken by John Evans, one of the people that was the subject of this book, Broken Faith. John Evans infiltrated and recorded and took contemporaneous notes and everything about everything that happened from beginning to end in this church.
Screaming to split the ears of devils, delivering this man and others from demons inside them so they can walk with God. Until now, many of the members may have been kept in the dark about allegations of child abuse, sexual molestation, unlawful imprisonment, and cult-like mind control techniques.
Okay, so there's a lot there. Those were the things that some people were charged with. You can't charge somebody with cult-like mind control techniques. They were just saying that because, that's viewed as evil in society. But what he said there, let's listen one more time to the accusations. I'll explain what happened.
Allegations of child abuse.
The child abuse part is the blasting at the very least. And also, as that kid said earlier, he had been punched and knocked over a desk. That happened frequently. People were actually physically hit in this church all the time. Listen to this, the next accusation.
Abuse, sexual molestation.
That one right there was the result of one of the husbands, I believe, or one of the top people in the church, one of the husbands of the women that led it, I believe. And he was known to take advantage of the people in his care, of the children in his care. I'm trying to state it lightly, which doesn't really do it justice. He took advantage of them terribly. And, those people eventually grew up and went on to tell the police. But guess what? The police were elected by Jane Whaley. So they dropped it. They didn't say a word. They ignored it completely. Eventually, it happened to enough people, and it was continuing to happen this entire time, that they went to the FBI. And the FBI got involved and saw that, the sheriff, this whole town is controlled by this cult. And they eventually charged that guy that I'm talking about here, who famously did this stuff, sentenced him to 1 year in jail on 4 or 5 counts. It was a lot. It's the kind of thing you get 30 years for. He got 1 year in jail, and he got another 2 years on probation, I think, something like that. Don't quote me on those numbers. He was allowed out of jail on the condition that he not be in the same room with these children ever, with the victims, not go within 100 feet of them under any circumstances. And he said, I agree. I will follow those rules. Absolutely. The very next day when he was let out, what did he do? He goes to the next church service and sits down behind the complaining survivor. The person that brought it to the FBI in the first place sits down in the chair behind her to listen to the service. What's she going to do? Tell the sheriff? Like he cares? So I just want to draw out how much control this cult had and has actively now over this town in North Carolina. No joke. They're still influential, especially being women for Trump now. They're extremely influential.
Members may have been kept in the dark about allegations of child abuse, sexual molestation, unlawful imprisonment.
The unlawful imprisonment part is where they tied the children to chairs in the nursery. They had an area where all the kids would go. They would tie the children to chairs. And when asked about that, when, the question was posed to Jane Whaley, the founder and the leader of the church, why are you tying children to chairs? She would say, oh, they're just seatbelts. We just put seatbelts around them so they don't fall out of the chair. No, you were tying their arms and legs to the chair so they couldn't move and blasting them. That's what was happening. But okay.
And cult-like mind control techniques.
You can't really be charged for that one, but whatever. At least they're bringing attention to it. In any other context, the sad thing is, this would be illegal. The mind control and stuff. All that stuff would be against the law in any other context, but because it's in the context of a religion, it's protected. religion, in my opinion, needs more oversight than any other institution in society. It needs more people investigating it. It needs more documents filed and explanations of where their money went and what they did with it and all of that stuff. It needs more accountability because it is so easy to take advantage of it. You know, if you're going to create a system where you can get away with things in this institution that you can't get away with them in this other one, you need to set up a system of accountability to guarantee people don't take advantage of it, because you can bet your bottom dollar they will if they can. And that's exactly what happened here. Jane Whaley, Women for Trump, took advantage. And honestly, all these women, all of them, they're all members of Word of Faith Foundation or Word of Faith Fellowship. They're all members of it in this picture, I believe. They all took advantage of the fact that there's basically no accountability in religion.
Many of the members may have been kept in the dark about allegations of child abuse, sexual molestation, unlawful imprisonment, and cult-like mind control techniques.
Yeah, they say many of the members were kept in the dark about it. That seems likely to me, many of the members, but the leadership knew about everything.
Their leader is 55-year-old Jane Whaley, a former school teacher with no formal theological training.
Again, this was, 55, this was 1995. Former school teacher, dude. Now we know what she wanted to do to her students in class, right? If she didn't do it. Tie him to chairs, apparently, and beat the shit out of him. Holy Christ on a cracker. Okay, so 1955, and this is 1955, and she was 55 years old. So she's born in 1950. She was my dad's age. My dad was born in 51. Is that right? No, I'm not doing that math correctly. She was born in 1940. Yeah, she's born in 1940. Sorry. She was my grandma's age then, in that case. Born in 1940. She's still alive to this day. This is her in the picture right here. So how old is she today? Born in 1940. That would make her 83. She's 83. And she's still attending these Trump rallies, apparently. My God, dude. She's only like 5 years older than Donald Trump himself. Trump is 77. He's born in 1946. She's born in 1940, so to give you a little context there.
55-year-old Jane Whaley, a former school teacher with no formal theological training, and according to former church members like Roberta Priest.
Coming out and showing your face like this and talking about the group, mad respect to somebody who's willing to do that. Some cults are violent. Jehovah's Witnesses are pacifists. I'm not really risking much by talking negatively about them because they've already taken everything from me. I already lost my mom. I already lost all of my family members and everything that they could take. They took it. But coming out and speaking out against Jane Whaley like that and showing your face while you're doing it, you got to have an apple bag the size of Texas to do something like that.
And according to former church members like Roberta Priest, a woman with little patience for followers who won't follow.
What she would do is say, this is the way that I believe God wants us to go, and everybody just went.
In the name of...
Okay, now this, if you don't know this guy, you could be forgiven for that because he was a famous televangelist in the 90s, at the time this is happening. This guy's name is Robert Tilton, and he was married to one of the inner circle of the leaders of Word of Faith Fellowship. I keep getting it confused, Foundation Fellowship. He's married to one of the inner circle members, and he was a filthy rich televangelist. He was eventually exposed by the Trinity Foundation, also, at the exact same time, by the exact same guy, John Evans, I think. John Evans, basically, found out where he banked or where he did his banking or whatever, and went there and watched Robert Tilton or his employees or whatever take the checks out of letters that were like prayer cards that were mailed to him. Take the checks out, throw the prayer cards in the dumpster at the bank, and walk inside and deposit the check into the account. Now, these people were paying for a service, right? They were paying for Robert Tilton and his ministry, or somebody at least, to look at their prayer card and pray for them, to pray that prayer for them. And they were paying him for that. He didn't deliver that service. Like I said, religion is unique in the sense that it gets away with things that nobody else can get away with, that no other institution can get away with. Not only because there's very little regulation, like you can't sell a fake product in real life like Robert Tilton was doing, but because there's no accountability. They don't even have to turn in how much money they made that year to the government. Other organizations, other nonprofits, they don't have to pay taxes, but they have to file a return to show what they did with the money, at least, and how much they have on hand and stuff like that. There has to be a level of accountability, and they have to publish, as a nonprofit, you have to publish how much you brought in and what you spent on what publicly. If you ever wonder what, I don't know, say Planned Parenthood or the ACLU or whatever spent on something, to my knowledge, I'm not a lawyer, I believe you can just look that information up because it's a nonprofit. They have to publish that. Churches don't. Churches do not have to publish that information. They are completely exempt from any accountability. So anyways, what he did, selling a fake service, praying for somebody, and then not fulfilling his end of that service, would be illegal in any other industry. But there was no criminal anything here because he's perfectly allowed to do whatever he wants. That's what got that's how he was exposed eventually, Robert Tilton, in the 90s by the same people that did this whole investigation about Word of Faith, and that's why you don't know his name today, because his ministry was destroyed after that scandal. Let me just show you a couple of famous little ditties from this guy, Robert Tilton. Yeah, I'll just show you my favorite video from him. Not sure when this came out, but check this out.
See, Bob, I can't send $100. If you can just worship God through $5 or $10, every Apostle Paul said the first of each week lay aside as God hath prospered you. That's why I believe God prospers people.
So he's trying to convince people to send money in and framing it up like it's a religious obligation to do it. If you don't, then you're failing God.
Satan gave me this mess. I mean, it's a lie of the devil. I shouldn't have said that.
Oh, boy.
God gave me this message.
Accidentally told the truth there for a second, didn't he? I love that. I don't believe any of this shit, but anyway, it's funny. I love it. So, yeah, that's Robert Tilton. They're going to give us a couple of other little examples of him being a nutter butter here. So check out Robert Tilton here. Like I said, he was deeply entrenched in the Word of Faith fellowship. He knew Jane Whaley, worked with her, they exchanged money and they exchanged influence and all of it because he was one of, he's basically one of the leaders of this cult, effectively.
In the name of Jesus, thou foul devils of...
And among the latest to follow along, disgraced TV preacher Robert Tilton. He's divorced his wife, married a Jane Whaley disciple, and attempted a comeback on a handful of stations, screaming at devils.
Devils, go!
Now he does just like he's learned to do here in Spindale.
Yeah, I think he's doing like the blasting thing here.
Steal our families in Jesus.
There you go. There's the blasting, where they're just screaming as loud as they can.
But it's not just the unconventional way they worship. Since early last fall, we've been investigating what they've been doing inside the church to their youngest, most helpless children, all in the name of God.
I know a few things.
Eddie Taylor, who just left the church after 6 years, says he got the shock of his life one Sunday morning when he just happened to go to a part of the church he'd never visited before.
One time I walked in the nursery.
Oh, boy, the nursery. Like I said, they tie kids to chairs there.
All the kids were tied in the chair with a cloth behind them tied to the chair where the kids couldn't get out and play. I don't really know. I mean, they were just sitting there.
Again, like a lot of the time, you disassociate when something really, really horrific happens to you. You disassociate. Your eyes are empty and dead. When you realize there's nothing you can do about your situation and you just have to deal with it, you disassociate. Your mind goes somewhere else and your body stays there in the most extreme cases of abuse. And that's probably, it leads to like a dead look in your eyes. And that's probably what this dude was describing, what he saw in these kids' eyes. Emptiness. They were just dead inside because they were being so terribly mistreated in so many just simply disgusting and evil ways. They had to disassociate for their own mental survival.
Roberta Priest knows she worked in the nursery where no matter how young or fussy, children who are brought here are regularly restrained with their bed sheets at the direction of church leaders. The screams you hear are the prayers they're subjected to in a nearby bathroom when they won't sit completely still.
Why tie them up?
Because they got out of their chairs if you didn't.
So yeah, like 2, 3, 4-year-olds, they climb around, they play, they look around, and they want to explore their worlds. They'll, if they can't walk yet, say they're like between 1 and 2 years old, they'll be crawling around. They'll kind of, pull themselves up and walk along a surface. They'll pick up every dust mote and penny they see on the floor and put it in their mouth because they want to figure it out. They want to understand, They want to understand the world around them. What was Women for Trump leader Jane Whaley doing to them? Tying them to the chair so they couldn't get up and screaming at the top of her lungs in their ears if they moved, if they fidgeted, if they did anything. So these kids were sitting here, and as this dude that we just saw a second ago, as this dude described it, they're sitting there with a dead look in their eyes. And that should tell you something about this cult. It should tell you something about what these kids experienced.
And according to Jane, that was the restraints of God. In fact, something was said about how we tie the children up in the nursery, and she came back within the next day or two saying, "Don't ever say that. Just say that's their seat belts."
Older children endure it too. This father and his young son are screaming to break generations of demons. Across the church, another dad is angry that his young daughter won't take hold, settle down, and obey Jesus.
So, the girl, I don't know how old, 10, 12, 14, 16, who knows, doesn't want to be part of this cult. So what does he do? Brings her to this service, tells them that she doesn't want to be part of the cult, and they scream in her ears at the top of their lungs, all of them together, until she relents or until she's just dead inside, just empty. As I said, Jehovah's Witnesses are pacifists. They aren't physically abusive to their people. I've never seen an example of it as part of church doctrine. They do say spare the rod, spoil the child, so they expect the father to be abusive to the children. But my dad went above and beyond what was expected from Jehovah's Witnesses and went into straight up chilling, like shit that you wouldn't do to an animal, like really bad shit. So I understand what's happening to these kids when they're disassociating and everything, not for religious reasons, just for, regular, unrelated to religion reasons. I feel so deeply sorry for these people that they had to endure this. And one of the more sad parts is that a lot of them are probably still enduring this. This is 95. These guys are my age, some of these kids. I was born in 89. You see a 6-year-old in any of these videos, they're probably my age now. How sad is that? I would bet anything that a lot of them are still in the church. You know why? Because they're separated from their parents. They're kept in an area of the church that's cordoned off from anybody else, and they're brainwashed nonstop, tied to chairs and brainwashed. Sad shit, man, for real. I wonder what they would do if they encounter a true fighter. Well, they're violent, these people. They're violent to outsiders. They have been suspected of murder and stuff. Like, they follow people around, and they'll beat the shit out of full-grown adults.
Every parent here is expected to teach their children how to participate in these ear-shattering shouts, often for hours at a time.
Again, the way that the church operates is you are only allowed to have children in the church if you get clearance from Jane Whaley herself. You're only allowed to, sleep with your wife or husband if you get clearance from Jane Whaley herself. And if it's not time to have children, the church will supply the condoms for you. Once you have the child, when you get clearance from Jane Whaley to have children, you get some time to raise the kid, till they're 3 or 4. And then they're taken from you and they're placed with another member of the church. And the only time you can see the kid is at church in these services when they're doing this stuff. That's all very intentional. They spread them around and mix them up and give them to other people to try to control the population more adequately, to prevent members from leaving at any cost. It's a control tactic. It's disturbing. And they're defunct now, the church? No, they're not. They're not defunct. They're still operating. They still have influence in this North Carolina town, and now they are also operating as Women for Trump.
We asked Dr. Ruth Peters, a respected child psychologist, to watch lots of our videotape. Her conclusion?
Oh, this is definitely child abuse. There's no excuse in my mind for it. If you look at the kids' faces, it's really quite fascinating. They're dead. They really are. Their faces are dead.
Yeah, they've disassociated. They've disconnected. When you're truly abused, like I said, you disconnect emotionally. And whatever happens to your body happens. That's it. But your mind is cordoned off into a safe place, basically, when you disassociate. That's what we're seeing.
Eyes are dead. They're not really responding. I think they're very scared, but after a couple years of this, they become numb to it. They know how to walk the walk and talk the talk.
Yeah, they're numb to it, and they learn how to mimic the thing that the leaders want to see, is what she's saying, I think.
They just go through it, and they know that they will be punished, probably severely, if they aren't well-mannered.
I get hit so hard one time that I almost flew over the desk. You know, and then that's when I realized, well, hey, this is not right. This is abuse.
And Jerry Kane, she's found it's no picnic for adults in this church either.
You have to...
Wow, look at that hair, man. You've got to give her props for having a haircut like that. It takes an apple bag in its own right to have a haircut like that. Of course, at the time, that was popular, but...
Conform. They teach you total authority. They are the authority. We're to be subservient. Even to want to see my daughter, who was still a minor, I was never allowed to live with her again. Why not?
Right. Like I said, they take the children away when they're a little bit older. They give you time to bond with them, connect with them, and then they give them to a different member of the church.
Because of the perverted soul ties in us.
They don't want you to have a connection for long because they claim because it's perverse to be emotionally connected to somebody else. So they take the child away and they place them with somebody else. The real reason, seems obvious to me, is to just control people.
Michelle is still inside. Her mother is convinced that, like other church members, she's been brainwashed to stay.
She had been with me her whole life. I feel as if they reached inside me and ripped my child out of my womb.
And what else can happen to members who question Whaley's authority? Deep inside a dark state mental hospital, a follower has languished in silence, force-fed for more than a year. We're told he stopped eating and speaking because Pastor Whaley repeatedly refused to let him speak his mind in her church.
And she said it was his religious devils coming against the move of God.
She literally drove a guy into an insane asylum. That's crazy.
Jane Whaley lives here on 65 acres with her family and a number of unrelated church members. But it's not unusual for her to tell other families to split up and scatter among several communal homes.
That's a rule, basically. Yeah, it's not that it's not uncommon. That's like part of the way that they operate. Split people up. Take the children, place them with somebody else.
Parents separated from children, brothers from sisters. Most leaders live in big houses and drive fine cars, while members have been known to crowd into their basements and hallways, more than a dozen to a house.
I've got friends that want to get out of there so bad, and they can't get out because...
Dude, speaking out publicly with your face like this, seriously, it takes a real apple bag. The apple bag on this dude is ginormagantuan. That's the only word I can think of to describe it. With his real name and everything, Lazarus Margolin. I mean, they'd know exactly who he was the moment that he spoke out. But he can't live in that town anymore. He had to leave that town completely because everybody, including the sheriff and the deputies and everybody all the way down the line, everybody is on the side of the church because every elected official was elected by the members of the church. since they have a majority.
You know, they have no place to go, no place to run, no place to hide. And if they do get out, they come after them and tell them that you're going to go to hell if you do this, or you're out of the will of God and you're going to go to hell.
This Spindale police officer knows that can happen. He once helped a Brazilian man who was desperate to get away, but he had no transportation, and the church was holding his things.
Like I said, about 52% or so are controlled by Jane Whaley to some degree, 52% of the town. So every now and then you'll find a deputy that is not connected to the church. Every now and then you'll find some police officer that's not connected, and they do try to help people when they find them. And I guess that's what they're describing here.
He was trying to leave, and they wouldn't take him anywhere. They wouldn't help him get his baggage.
By the way, it's Spindale, North Carolina. That's the name of the city. It just said so on screen. Spindale, North Carolina. That's the town they own. Yeah, it's got a total of 4,163 people, and they have about 52% of the voters, give or take. They're just enough to control everything.
To leave, and they wouldn't take him anywhere. They wouldn't help him get his baggage.
Now, since the church is just outside the city limits, the officer went off duty to pick up the man who wanted out.
That is caring. He went off duty to help. That is protecting and serving. That is going above and beyond to do your duty as a police officer. This guy deserves recognition and appreciation for helping somebody when he absolutely did not have to, you know? And when it was even dangerous to do so. It just, listen to this one more time because it's an important little note to make note of here. Listen to what it says here.
Outside the city limits.
Catch that? Outside the city limits? That's intentional. I've seen this time and time again with cults. They set up shop outside city limits so that they're outside of the districts of the majority of police departments, outside of tax districts and stuff like that. They have to get either a state police officer or a county sheriff to show up if there's some kind of a problem. So they only need to control one set of people rather than the city police and the sheriff and the state police. They only need to control one. The sheriff is the most likely to respond to these types of calls. State police are off doing other things. So control the sheriff is all they got to do, and they're set. It's all part of the plan. Like, this is all part of the deal, this type of thing right here.
I'll take him anywhere. They wouldn't help him get his baggage.
Now, since the church is just outside the city limits, the officer went off duty to pick up the man who wanted out.
Where I made the mistake is I went to a travel agency a few minutes afterwards, and he got plane tickets to go to New York.
But then, when church members telephoned the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department to claim the Brazilian man was a missing person, the case took a rather unconventional turn.
Wait, so let me listen one more time. What was it he said?
Department to claim the Brazilian man was a missing person.
Who claimed that? Hang on.
A few minutes afterwards, and he got plane tickets to go to New York.
So this cop went off duty to help this kid escape this cult and got him to a travel agency, and the kid bought tickets to go to New York. Just get the f*** out of Spindale at any cost. Just get out. And then what happened?
But then, when church members telephoned the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department to claim the Brazilian man was a missing person.
And of course, the sheriff's department is in the pocket of the church, or vice versa, whatever. Dan Ford, I think, was the sheriff's name. I forget his name now at the time. The sheriff will do absolutely anything the church tells him to do. Anything.
The case took a rather unconventional turn. Deputies investigated and found out the man was indeed headed out of here and on to New York. And then that information was leaked right back to the church.
Right, so the sheriff found out what happened, where he was going, and that he wasn't actually missing. And somehow the church found that out. Interesting how that works, huh? Information apparently flows from the sheriff's department to the church. Told you this town is as corrupt as it gets.
The next morning, the officer says a church member ambushed them at the airport to insist, unsuccessfully, that the man return to the word of faith. The local sheriff says that's news to him.
He's the one I was talking about. He's the one that is in their pocket. He's the one that's affiliated with the church that they voted in to office so that he would ignore any problems that he came across with the church.
Sheriff Dan Good.
Dan Good, that was his name. I knew it was Dan something.
Has no knowledge of what you just now said.
He may not know that story, but the sheriff's office did look into complaints of child molestation involving this member.
That guy right there, he was the one I was talking about earlier, who, after getting out of jail after a year, was instructed to stay away from his survivors and waltzed right in and sat right behind them in the church service.
Does that kind of thing go on in the church fairly regularly? Or?
Keith Grindstaff pleaded guilty to 2 felony charges of indecent liberties with a child, but his pastor, Jane Whaley, kept it quiet. The pastor has also privately admitted to us that she's kept the lid on other sexual affairs involving young girls and other church members. But she's refused our repeated request to talk about anything on camera. For years, locals say the sheriff has ignored claims of other illegal activities inside the church, like details in this letter from a woman who says she was tied and held captive by church members.
That it would surprise me if that did not happen. I mean, this follows the MO of the church perfectly.
For 2 weeks, and this former church member says that's true. She says she and a number of fellow parishioners were there along with their pastor, Jane Whaley.
I didn't really feel good about it. I believed that she was getting help because that's what we were told.
Have you looked hard enough?
This is the sheriff that they voted into office.
Have you asked enough questions? Have you done your job?
No, he hasn't. He hasn't. He has. His job was to protect the church, to lie and drop cases and do whatever it took to protect Jane Whaley. So, yeah, that's the job that Jane Whaley hired him to do. And, he did it.
Don't know how else to put it.
Well, I think the citizens of this county will tell you that Dan Good does his job, and he's going to continue doing it.
Why is he referring to himself in the third person like this? Why does he keep saying, Dan Good, blah, blah, blah? I think Dan Good. You are Dan Good. Okay, why do you keep saying this?
The citizens of this county will tell you that Dan Good does his job, and he's going to continue doing his job regardless of who is involved.
Is he in their pocket?
I believe so.
Yeah, I mean, the FBI wrote a report up about this. They investigated this group thoroughly in this entire town and everything. And the report was just released in 2017, I think. And then the book was written about it and, revealed all this information. Yes, Dan Good was in the pocket of the church.
Several in the area have told us they believe the sheriff may have told his deputies to look the other way because it's the support of church members that put him into office.
Yep, that's absolutely correct, according to the FBI report that released recently.
That's why there's no investigation?
I believe that's right.
If an adult wants to do this to themselves, so be it. That's fine. Do it.
No, it's not fine. I don't give a shit. If an adult is doing this to themselves, it's because they were brainwashed into it. I'm still going to complain about it. But I'm going to complain even louder for the children.
Whatever you want, but you have absolutely no right to subject the child to this. To me, that's extreme abuse.
Anyways, yeah, that's the Word of Faith Fellowship, run by Jane Whaley, a.k.a. the leader of Women for Trump. Fascinating, right? Just disturbing on so many levels, disgusting. I can't believe she's still alive. She could be like 85 now or something like that. But it doesn't matter because she's got her little posse here of women who control everything in her stead. So when Jane Whaley kind of kicks it, she's got one foot in the grave, one on a banana peel, seems like, at this point. When she kind of slips on that banana peel, if you will, the others featured in this picture will take control and continue the goals of the church. It's just Jane Whaley is a seemingly psychotic, sociopathic nutcase who only cares about power and control. That's what it seems like to me. Anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments. I've been meaning to cover this for a while, just haven't had the opportunity. This cult is wild, man. So a Dateline catches up with Robert Tilton. You remember Robert Tilton? They caught up with him in 2016, years later, like 20 years after this investigation came out and after he was ruined and all that other stuff. 20 years later. See what he's up to. And they found that he has a ministry where he meets once a month in a room in the Marriott at this hotel or whatever, right? So Dateline shows up to the Marriott here
conference room at a Marriott.
And so they find him, and they decided to, kind of crash the church service that he holds. Discovered that there are 5 people there. Watch what happens here.
The Marriott, and there we found Tilton.
Isn't that fascinating? Word of faith. So when Robert Tilton fell from grace, he dove into word of faith and presumably gave them all of his power and money that he got from everybody else, like, all the people, because he's a televangelist, of course. But Dateline probably didn't realize the significance of this word of faith thing right here, because they don't even touch on it. But this guy right here noticed.
Who remembered me from years ago. Robert Tilton, how are you?
Great.
Brett Shipp with WFAA TV in Dallas.
Oh, Mike. Well, you still looking good.
It's been a while. How are you?
I'm good.
We came out here to see you.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. That sounds like something that makes me feel warm and fuzzy.
Is it okay? Do you mind?
No, not at all.
His congregation, a fraction of what it was back in the day. About 5 people scattered.
Right here again on the door to his 5-person congregation says word of faith. You know that this is the board of directors, or this is like a leadership meeting of some sort, right? It has to be. There's no other explanation here. It must be some kind of a leadership meeting that they crashed once a month.
Scattered in conference room chairs. His mood quickly changed when he realized we were there to report and not tithe.
Now, who's this guy with you?
That's Mark.
Mark, no cameras.
Moments later, my photographer and I were told to leave.
These guys can't be trusted. They're press.
After 25 years and a fall from grace, Robert Tilton may never escape the spotlight or his fate that finds him in a tiny conference room outside of L.A.
So anyways, they're portraying him as like falling from grace, but he is extremely influential in word of faith still to this day. In fact, his influence probably increased in word of faith because of his ties to it after he failed, after he, his ministry fell apart or whatever. I don't think the word of faith people are stupid. That's what's so concerning. I think they're extremely intelligent, know exactly what they're doing. Anyways, yeah, let me know what you guys think about it in the comments. This is just absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy.